Hey everybody, it's Peggy Hasenauer from the Kovler Diabetes Center. I'm honored and grateful to have my friend and Kovler Leadership Board member, Megan Hoffmann, with us today. Hey Megan, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. And I love that you're joining us from home in your beautiful office. So that's just fantastic. It's so lovely. And it's so good to see you. Megan, many people don't know that you and your husband are a young couple managing a bunch of kids and getting it done. But tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
So we have a crazy loud house. Jeff and I've been married for 16 years. We have four sons. Henry is our type 1 and he's 11 and the oldest of the crew. George is 10, Ben is 7, and Teddy is 4. So we are
Holy
all
cow.
under one house right now, comfy cozy, and it's highs and lows, but we're getting through it, and we're
I
having fun, honestly.
That's great. That's great. I think what's so enlightening and interesting about this experience is that I've been able to connect with people like you who I know very personally, but I'm able to share a little bit about you and your journey as I have with many others in this interesting format that we're doing right now on Zoom. And so our goal is to really, share our experiences at Kovler, your experiences with us, with an audience maybe who doesn't know about Kovler or maybe has diabetes or maybe doesn't even live in Chicago. So
Right.
tell us a little bit more about your journey with type 1 and your son's journey and how you sort of came to Kovler, if you don't mind.
So it's interesting. This week, Henry actually, it was his 4-year anniversary since
Wow.
diagnosis this week. So we've been at this for about 4 years. Henry was diagnosed on April 20th of 2016, and he was admitted into a hospital. We live on the North Shore of Chicago here locally, but when he was in that hospital, we were so lucky to have close friends and neighbors that immediately reached out and told us about Dr. Phillipson and Kovler.
Hmm.
And at that time, when your world has been turned upside down, to be honest, having those friends reach out and hearing comforting words like "there is hope, there's somewhere to go, we know who you need to see," and I think before Henry even left the hospital that day, we had an appointment with Dr. Phillipson, thanks to you, Peggy, and Dr. Phillipson and our friends that connected us. So 4 years later, you look back and we've come a long way, and Henry's amazing, and Henry's come a long way, and there are silver linings to a chronic illness like this. And day to day, we try to remind ourselves of those. And he's a tough, brave kiddo that we're so proud of.
Well, we're, honored to know you and to know your kids. And I think you and I have shared many stories and swapped many stories over the years about being moms. And so there's no sort of stranger time to be a mom than when all of our children, our spouses, our loved ones are near us and frankly on top of us. And so how do we navigate that as parents? And I think many of the challenges that we're all facing as parents is how do we give our kids some autonomy and yet how do we direct them? We're being asked to fulfill all these roles now, right? As like teachers and healthcare
Yeah.
providers and what have you. So how is that going at home for you, particularly for your son with type 1 in the context of he's now with you all the time and he's not at school?
It's interesting. We're really seeing firsthand his blood sugars in real time.
Hmm.
He's a pretty independent kid, and we know what he's eating at every meal, and he's pretty responsible. Something that we've definitely noticed is he plays quite a few organized sports. And
Hmm.
so therefore, in the past 30 days, his blood sugars have certainly been higher than usual. I mean, still in okay range, but just a
Sure.
tad higher than what it would typically be. That sports help keep him in range. And I think there's a certain amount of social and emotional stress that these kids are under also. I mean,
For
listen,
sure.
we're all riding highs and lows. We have great moments and we have crazy, not so great moments. And certainly I think Henry's blood sugars maybe reflect a little bit of stress he's feeling. He misses his friends. He misses his teacher. Mom's the new teacher, and I don't know that he's a big fan of that, but we're doing the best we can, and it's been interesting to see. One thing I feel like I did leading up to this, and I was so lucky, I had a candid conversation with Dr. Phillipson right before we all went under quarantine, and his advice to me was kind of get ready best you can, and not just stocking up on food, but really take inventory of your prescriptions, your CGM supplies, pump supplies, low supplies. We can go to the grocery store certainly, but the less we do that, it helps, and the pharmacies. So I really tried to do my homework ahead of time leading up until quarantine on that regard.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think we're seeing some silver linings, certainly, as you pointed out. That term, I think, is coming to mind right now, because I think we're able to spend more time with our children and see them in a different light, and understand what they're doing day to day. But it really has affected their ability to define themselves, because they're not involved in all their activities and sports. Has he said anything to you, your son Henry, about how he feels about being at home, how he feels about diabetes management, how he feels about checking his blood sugars, or how he feels about sitting at the table where maybe we're like looking at his meal, right, for the first time? How does he feel about it? I'm just curious.
I think he feels like he's under a microscope. I think
Yeah.
we're watching, we're all waiting sometimes, to be honest. It's not his fault, but everyone's sort of waiting. And I think when he would probably otherwise do something that we wouldn't know about, he'd probably still bull us for it, but we certainly are more aware and on top of him. I guess he has less privacy. We all have less privacy and no alone time.
That's fair. That's a very fair point. I think the kids don't have a lot of privacy. Their ability to make decisions has changed a lot, because we're right around the corner. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I've been thinking about you as a mother in terms of how you navigate that. And I'm also curious how it's maybe affected or not affected the other kids, right, who don't have type 1.
Well, certainly, I mean, I'll speak, this is so selfish, but as a mom of 4 young boys, my break usually came in the form of a school day. We have a wonderful school nurse that I really felt like managed him and followed his numbers. And I was still always watching, of course, but I could at least take a break and not be watching so acutely, knowing that she was on it. So, I feel like I'm certainly feeling the 24/7-ness of the disease again. And definitely our other kids, I think, have become more aware of what it takes to do what Henry does every day. We're eating 3 meals and snacking together all day, every day. And, the blessing is that we're actually sitting down to meals, whereas before, because of sports and activities, we sometimes were not eating as a family, quite often not, certainly dinner
Right.
time. So dinner time is certainly sacred time now, but it definitely brings the diabetes to the forefront again, I think, because we're all eating at the same time, and we're counting carbs as a family, and we're talking about it, and we're figuring out his boluses together. So there's definitely a team approach, I think, also now.
I get it. I think, though, you are one of a handful of people that are incredibly genuine and honest about your experience. And I think even just you sharing these pieces of information, it's so helpful to a parent at home who's struggling right now with maybe a newly diagnosed child, or they're trying to work and they're trying to manage mealtime. I think that you have sort of embraced the chaos, certainly among your boys, but I think you've embraced the chaos of, life can be kind of messy. And with type 1 diabetes, it's certainly messy. It's messy for the individual and for the family members who are trying to sort of work through it every day. And for good or bad, I think you bring up a good point about your other boys seeing what he's experiencing.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they've always been aware, but certainly, no one's coming or going. We're all here together. No one else is doing it for us. And, as in like the school nurse.
Yeah.
I think they also see that Henry's really independent and really responsible. We were watching a TV show as a family the other night in our basement, and we saw Henry pull out his phone and check his number, and he gave himself a correction. Jeff and I were sitting behind him, and Jeff's like, he was pretty high, honestly. It was Friday night pizza night here, which, as we all know, is not the best. But you know what? They're kids, and that's life, and it's Friday.
Right.
And we sort of didn't even say anything, but we just kind of watched him do this independently, not looking over his shoulder, not looking for reassurance. We just kind of trusted him we saw him do it, and we just let it play out. And that was a great moment that we witnessed.
Yeah. I think you always bring such positivity to how we're managing this as parents, and how we can sort of see the bright side of things even when it's hard. I think we're seeing our kids grow up at home before our very eyes with some of these decisions, and sometimes they're better off if we don't intervene at times, which I have to teach myself every second of every day.
Absolutely.
Don't intervene. Let them tie their own shoes. Just wait 10 seconds. I was also thinking about the work that you've done with us as a member of the Kovler Leadership Board. We really, really lucked out in many ways, having what was a spectacular gala about 6 weeks ago to support Kovler. All of the money raised goes directly to support Kovler research, patient care, and education. And so I just wanted to thank you for all your involvement in the gala. And I wanted you to share with those who maybe don't know that much about Kovler, about the Kovler Leadership Board, what your experience has been, and why you and your husband choose to support Kovler.
So first of all, it's funny. I can't believe the gala was 2 months, almost like 7 weeks ago. It was the most
crazy,
wonderful night. That was like our last night out, I feel like, before we went
for many people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was actually sending an email out to the leadership board today. I can't believe the gala was 7 weeks ago, and it was amazing. And I think it was our last night out before we went under quarantine, and it was such a wonderful evening for a wonderful cause. And I joined the Kovler board, I think about a year ago. I think my first meeting was in May of last year.
May.
And the leadership board is such a wonderful group of individuals that have a unified passion behind Kovler. And Sally Kovler is sort of our faithful leader of the group. And every person on the board brings a unique perspective and energy. And the fact that we all have the same passion in terms of supporting Kovler and all of its services and offerings and patient care. And, since day 2, I want to say, of Henry's type 1 diabetes diagnosis, the first time that we walked into the clinic, we felt, oh my gosh, we're not alone. From meeting with the certified diabetes educator to Dr. Phillipson. And so I think everyone on the leadership board feels that also, and is really passionate about what Kovler is doing, not only for us, but in the community for people living with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And we just feel like we're not alone. And this was an organization that was really a no-brainer for Jeff and I and our family to get behind. And we love the people.
Well, we have just so enjoyed getting to know you and your family and your children. You've been a spectacular addition to the board, and we can't thank you enough for your time today. I think what I've always appreciated about you, Megan, is you are always positive. You always bring a ton of energy to the table, but you always share with us your perspective as a woman, as a professional, as a mother, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. I will invite you back, because we'll definitely have to do a part 2, and we'll have all 4 boys, and then I want the dog. And then I would love Jeff to pop in, right? We're gonna do like like a family collab. And we will
I'm
have a
surprised they haven't
conversation.
come crashing in. I told them I need 20 minutes, just 20 minutes.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I talked to Al Taylor today as well, who has 4 young children, and his little guy Kevin popped in at the very end. It was so funny. So funny. Well, thanks again, Megan, for your time, and we will certainly call you again to
My
connect
pleasure.
and talk. All right, take care. Have a
Stay
great day.
healthy. Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.